I don't think I can read the Planning Act mandated notice until we have quorum.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Acting Mayor DePello, we are live streaming. Just for the public to be aware, we're just waiting for quorum, and then we will be able to start the meeting as soon as that's reached.
Okay. Well, welcome members of council. Welcome members of the public. We currently are two councilors short of beginning this meeting. Once we have 5 members of council, we will start the meeting. And our procedural bylaws allows for up to 30 minutes to wait for us to achieve the quorum. We require 5 members of council to be on screen. They have to be visible to the meeting. I believe I can let members of the public know that Councillor Karen Silovitz has sent in her regrets, and she has battled the COVID-19 pandemic and experienced COVID herself and her husband, and she's given me permission to let members of the public know that she would be here otherwise. And she is very interested in all applications involved in her ward, and she will be following through as these applications proceed through the process. And we wish her the best and a speedy recovery. Councillor Liu has also sent in regrets. I am seeing that Councillor Barros and Deputy Mayor Pirelli are logged into the meeting, but we don't officially have quorum unless they turn their screens on. There's Councillor Munch, that's 4. And Councillor Barros. Okay, members of the public, we have a quorum. I'm going to call this meeting to order. If you bear with me, I read a COVID statement and a Planning Act mandated public hearing statement. Due to the efforts to contain the spread of COVID and to protect all individuals, city facilities will not be open to the public to attend council and committee meetings until further notice. The public can observe meetings of council and committees by viewing the live stream of the open session portion of these meetings, which can be accessed on the city's website or on the city's YouTube page, which is linked from our city's website. Now, the public hearing statement. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submission to the City of Richmond Hill in respect of a proposed official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and/or plan of subdivision or condominium, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of City Council to the local planning appeal tribunal and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to hear comments regarding the proposed planning applications. Planning staff will first provide an overview and describe the application. A representative for the property owner or the applicant will then have the opportunity to speak, followed by individuals who have registered to appear as a delegation.
My apologies.
All delegations.
Yeah, we have lost a quorum again. Deputy Mayor Pirelli has left the meeting or dropped. Councillor Barros.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. So I'll just pause there, and we'll wait for one of either Councillor Barros or Deputy Mayor Pirelli to turn the screen on so we can continue. We have to have 5 members of council present to carry on with the meeting. There we are. Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Pirelli. As a reminder to all delegations, make sure your microphone is not muted when you begin speaking, and every registered delegation will be provided 5 minutes to speak. The clerk will
Apologies.
announce when you have 1 minute left and when your time is up. We're drifting in and out of quorum. Mr. Clerk, it appears, but we do have 5 members right now. So can I get a motion from someone to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting? Thank you, Councillor Chan, seconded by Councillor West. Any discussion? All in favor? That carries unanimously. Very good. And any members of council have a disclosure of pecuniary interest in any of the items before us today? I see none. So we will proceed to the first item on the agenda. We have, sorry, bear with me for 1 second. Thanks for that. So our first item is a request for comments on a revised official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application for 9861 Young Development, Inc., which is located at 9861 Young Street and 236 and 240 Church Street South. From our planning department, forgive me, I'm flipping back to the gallery to see who's here. It's Catherine Feria from our planning staff. Go ahead and introduce this application to us. Thank you.
Good evening, Acting Mayor DePaula, members of council, and the public. The first public meeting tonight involves revised applications for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment to permit a residential development on the lands municipally known as 9861 Yonge Street and 236 and 240 Church Street South. Next slide, please. The subject lands are comprised of 3 contiguous parcels that form a through lot and have frontage on both Yonge Street and Church Street South. The lands, which have a total combined area of approximately 0.29 hectares, are located south of Major Mackenzie Drive East, north of Harding Boulevard, and are immediately adjacent to the unopened portion of Palmer Avenue, which is planned as a future municipal linear park. A portion of the lands are currently vacant, and the balance of the land supports 2 existing single detached dwellings fronting onto Church Street South that are to be demolished. Applications for official plan and zoning bylaw amendment were submitted with respect to the lands at 9661 Yonge Street and 240 Church Street South in 2012. In 2015, the lands were sold and revised applications were filed with respect to the subject lands. Subsequently, the applications were appealed to the OLT, which is formally known as the OMB and the LPAT. Next slide, please. The applicant has filed substantially revised official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications, which now include additional lands at 236 Church Street South. Through these revised applications, the applicant is seeking approval of its revised proposal to permit a 10-story mixed-use development containing a total of 147 dwelling units, including 8 integrated townhouse units, and at-grade commercial space along Yonge Street on its land holdings. Vehicular access for the proposed development is contemplated from Church Street South, which connects the street to a proposed drop-off area, a loading area, and a ramp to a proposed underground parking facility for the development. The lands are designated urban area and are located along a regional corridor in accordance with the region's official plan. In addition, the lands are designated downtown local center and are located within the civic district within the city's official plan. Land uses permitted within the downtown local center include residential apartments, office, commercial, and retail uses for lands having frontage on Yonge Street. For lands that do not have frontage on Yonge Street, permitted uses include low and medium density residential uses. The lands are currently zoned residential multiple third density RM3 zone and residential second density R2 zone under bylaw 6671 as amended, which permit various residential uses. Next slide, please. The applicant's revised official plan amendment application seeks approval to implement site-specific exceptions to permit a maximum building height of 10 stories and to permit a maximum site density of 4.6 FSI on the subject lands. The applicant has also submitted a revised zoning bylaw amendment application to rezone the subject lands to residential multiple 6 density RM6 zone under bylaw 6671 as amended, and to establish site-specific development standards in order to implement the development proposal as outlined in the staff report. The purpose of the report is to provide council and the public with an overview of the applicant's development proposal and has been structured for information purposes only, with a recommendation that all comments be referred back to staff for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Feria. And now we have one registered delegate, and I assume speaking on behalf of the applicant, David Nelligan from Airden Bearless. Mr. Nelligan, go ahead. You have 5 minutes to address council.
Good evening, and thank you, Acting Mayor DiPaolo and members of council. My name is David Nelligan. I'm here today as solicitor on behalf of the owner, 9861 Yonge Street Developments. And I want to thank Ms. Feria for her presentation and the detailed report that's before you today. As mentioned, this is a matter with some history to it. It was first, the applications were first filed in 2012, and then my client acquired the properties in 2015 and made revisions to them. These applications have been appealed to OLT and are currently before OLT. But in 2019, the city and my client mutually agreed to adjourn the hearing of the matter sine die to allow the city and my client and its consultants an opportunity to discuss and review and work towards a settlement of the hearing. I'm happy to report that those settlement discussions have been productive, and what's before you today actually represents a with prejudice settlement proposal on behalf of my client. Now, it's a little bit strange to be back before council for a public meeting on a matter that is before the OLT and that is significantly advanced. But I just wanted to point out the reason for this additional public meeting is that the proposal that was before council back in 2015 and that was appealed at that time included 9861 Yonge and 240 Church Street, but did not include 236 Church Street. And I'd ask if Ryan's able to share the site plan that I've provided. I'll just illustrate for you. 236 Church Street is the northern portion of the property. The previous application was one long rectangle, and 236 Church Street was acquired by my client in 2018, and really seeks to improve the proposed development by facilitating access and circulation on the site, by providing space and access to the underground parking at the ramp is on the north end of the property. And it also serves to provide a bit of space between the proposed mixed-use development, including the 8 proposed townhomes on Church Street, and the residential properties to the north. So we think that this is a substantial improvement, and it works together with the additional revisions to the proposal to achieve a nice balance between the planning objectives of the city of Richmond Hill and the region as well, and the development goals of my client. So the revised plans that are before you for your comment today, as I mentioned, are representative of a with prejudice settlement proposal that contemplates now a 10-story mid-rise mixed-use building that steps back appropriately from Yonge Street at the 7th story, and it incorporates a 45-degree angular plane from both the Yonge Street side and the Church Street side. So while it is a taller proposal at 10 stories, it fits nicely within the 45-degree angular plane to minimize any impact on surrounding residential neighborhoods. And it's also reflective of changes to the area that have been ongoing with neighboring properties to the south and to the west as well. Ultimately, it's our proposal, it's our opinion that the revised proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It is conforms with the growth plan, the regional official plan, the city's official plan, and it's has regard for and is consistent with the downtown urban design guidelines and the Richmond Hill urban design guidelines. And really, it's reflective of nearly 18 months now of cooperation and collaboration with city staff and with my clients' consultants, who have gone back and forth with several iterations of proposals to find a proposal that fits nicely within everybody's objectives. There is some work to be done, as you'll note through your review of the staff report, but the majority of points that still are in contention between us and staff are really matters of site plan control, and not matters for the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment as well. So we're very confident that this proposal, once you've had an opportunity to review it and comment on it, we're hopeful for this to return to you in the fall as the settlement proposal for your approval, so that ultimately we can return to the OLT in the fall for a settlement hearing, and really to avoid an unnecessarily long and costly contested hearing on this matter. So with my remaining time, I want to thank city staff, planning staff, Ms. Feria in particular, and city legal staff as well, including the late Barney Kustner, who assisted early on in this file, for getting us to this point where we're close to a settlement, and we're hopeful that the revised proposal finds your favor. I'm happy to answer any questions from yourself, Acting Mayor, or members of council, and I thank you for your time this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nelligan. Okay, gave you an extra 30 seconds there as you're the only delegate. Thanks for standing by for questions if any members of council have any. So I'm going to turn this over to Councillor West to speak on behalf of the ward councillor who's unable to attend this evening. Councillor West?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Thank you to the applicant and to Ms. Feria for presenting. Yeah, I think if we were giving out awards for a long time coming, you guys might win this. So we'll work on that later. There are, as you mentioned, Mr. Nelligan, there are a number of items that need to be reviewed, and they're all quite well listed in the staff report. One of them, there's a question about the height, that it's actually higher than the 10-story building. So I'm sure that the staff and the applicant can work that out. I guess I just really had one question, I guess. This is mixed use, so I assume that means the ground floor will be commercial. I guess through you to one of our planning staff, or maybe Commissioner Kwan, is there a comment from staff or a concern with having very little, it seems anyway, and I stand to be corrected, very little parking for the commercial units at grade, and especially given that the access is only off of Church. Has that, I presume that will be thought through or has been thought through, but I would be interested to hear any comments on that from our planning staff.
Acting City Manager Kwan?
Through Mr. Acting Mayor, I'll turn that over to Ms. Gianetta, the manager of the file, for some more technical detail.
Thank you. Through the acting mayor to Councillor West, those will form part of the site plan considerations that will follow once we've established the principles of the settlement on the official plan and zoning bylaw. However, I would like to note that the proposal does meet the city's parking requirements, so there is no shortages. So it's a site plan matter that I'm sure that we'll be able to resolve following through to the site plan application stage.
Okay, and actually that's a good point. And I'm not really talking about the quantity of parking. I'm just talking about the proximity of parking. It just seems a little odd. And it's an observation that there's ground floor commercial, and unless it's the kind of ground floor commercial that people will walk in from Yonge Street, which is possible, if anybody's going to be driving there, the the parking ability for people to use that commercial seems quite disconnected with the actual store. So I don't know how, I've not seen a situation like this before, but I'd be concerned about it. I want the commercial, at grade commercial in this building to be vibrant and to be something that people are going to be able to use. So I think we need to make it so that, you know, there is a welcoming ability for people to arrive there by foot, by transit, or by car. And, you know, I just want to make sure that whatever configuration we come up with, it's clearly outlined that people will be able to find parking and then access this you know, whatever commercial is there. So those would be my comments. I mean, as I said earlier, there are a number of issues that are outlined in the staff report that need to be addressed, but, you know, I think that the size and scale of the application sounds like it's you know, in the ballpark of what we would be expecting in that location. So, you know, I would encourage the discussions to continue. So those would be my comments. Mr. Acting Mayor, I'd be happy to move the motion to refer all comments back to staff.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor West. So your motion will be to refer all comments back to staff, including the receipt of 2 items of correspondence. Okay, is there a seconder for that motion? Members of council? Thank you, Councillor Chan. Okay, anyone else want to speak or have questions of the applicant? I don't see any, so I will say that I think this project seems very much in line with our overall vision for Young. It's a transition, scaling down from much higher buildings to the south and toward our historical heritage district. So I think will represent a nice transition. I look forward to seeing the full and complete report from our staff, and I admire the patience and tenacity of both our staff and yourself representing the applicant to follow through and cooperate and get to this stage. So we'll put the vote to the motion to a vote. Moved by Councillor West, seconded by Councillor Chan. All in favor? My green sign here. Okay, that carries. Thank you very much. Move to item 3.2. And this is a request for comments, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications made by 9750 Yonge Street Limited for 9750 and 9760 Yonge Street. And on behalf of our staff, we have Sandra Demaria. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes. Well, you can take as long as you want to present this to council.
Thank you. Good evening, Acting Mayor De Paula, council, and members of the public. The second public meeting item this evening involves proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications to permit a high-density, mixed-use residential commercial development on lands municipally known as 9750 and 9760 Yonge Street. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located on the west side of Yonge Street between May Avenue and Harding Boulevard and have a total lot area of 0.85 hectares or 2.10 acres. The lands are currently vacant and have frontage along both Yonge Street and Addison Street. Surrounding land uses include an existing seniors residence, Sunrise of Richmond Hill to the north, Addison Street to the west, beyond which are existing 2-story single detached and townhouse dwellings. Restaurant uses including the London Pub and Mr. Conjeet are to the south, and Yonge Street to the east, beyond which is an existing 1-story retail commercial plaza and a 14-story apartment building. Next slide, please. Ownership of the lands changed to the current owner, 9750 Young Limited, in 2020. The current owners are seeking approval of a high-density, mixed-use residential commercial development comprised of 2 residential apartment buildings, 22 and 18 stories in height, connected by a 5-story podium with ground floor retail commercial uses fronting onto Yonge Street, and proposes a combined total of 522 apartment dwelling units. There are also 18 townhouses proposed along the Addison Street frontage. Vehicular access to the site is proposed via a new public road, which is to be established along the southern property boundary. And 643 parking spaces are proposed within 4 levels of underground parking, with 7 of those spaces to be provided at grade. Next slide, please. The applicant's official plan amendment application proposes to increase the maximum permitted density from 2.5 FSI to 4.9 FSI, to increase the base building height, which is the podium, from 4 stories to 5 stories, and increase the maximum building height from 15 stories to 18 and 22 stories. The applicant is seeking approval of a related zoning bylaw amendment application that would, amongst other things, remove a number of the current permitted uses, including private recreational, assisted living residence, and retirement home and residence, and will establish site-specific development standards in order to facilitate the proposed development. It should be noted that the subject lands are within 800 meters of a major transit station area, 40, which is the newly constructed Viva Bus Rapid Transit Station located to the south of the Yonge Street and Major Mackenzie Drive intersection. In this regard, the subject lands are located within the boundaries of an MTSA as endorsed by Regional Council. Staff have circulated the application to internal departments and external agencies for review and comment. The purpose of this report is to provide council and the public with an overview of the applicant's development proposal and has been structured for information purposes only, with the recommendation that all comments be referred back to staff for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maria. Now we have 2 registered delegations on this application. I'm assuming they're both representing the applicant. First is Ryan Guter from Western Consulting.
Hi there.
Guter. Yeah.
Good evening, Acting Mayor DiPaolo, members of council. I'm here on behalf of the owners. We are the applicants, and I'm going to be taking up my 5 minutes with Mr. Charles Gain, who is the project architect. I should also note that our transportation engineer and an owner representative have also registered separately to the extent there are questions that arise that they can perhaps field. But I'm going to, with your indulgence, begin the presentation by sharing my screen for purposes of walking you through some of the details. Very thankful to Sandra for her remarks at the outset. And what I propose to do, can all members see the screen okay in a full-size capability? I'd like to just begin by highlighting the fact that these lands have been subject to prior approvals. And I won't belabor the points well articulated by Sandra, but again, Charles is a project architect. Sharon Sterling will be able to respond to any questions related to traffic. But as you would all know, this is well served in the community by amenities that exist in the area, the reference to the MTSA boundary. And of course, a lot has changed since some of the prior approvals in the provincial policy context, the new growth plan, as well as the provincial policy statement. Of course, by way of context, we're on a regional corridor, and the regional official plan, as well as the city's official plan, would seek to have permissions indicative of the proposal, notwithstanding we are seeking 18 and 22 stories, but largely in a form that's, I would say, similar to, but certainly an improved condition of interface in our view along Addison in particular, which Charles will describe. Current zoning today, we're proposing an official plan amendment to deal with the matters of height and FSI. We're also seeking a zoning amendment, and that will contain site-specific provisions in accordance with the proposed development. A number of materials have been submitted, all of which are listed here, but I'd like to turn over in a moment to Charles to describe the proposal. What you see on the screen is there's a contemplated public road connection at the south end on the left side of the image. The townhome units are 3 stories on the sort of west portion fronting onto Addison, with the connected towers on the 5-story podium. Total of 540 units. And as Sandra mentioned, commercial space as well. But I'll turn it over now to Charles. If you could register, Charles, and I'll flip the slides so you can describe the proposal in some detail. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Gain.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you. So I'd like to first point out our connectivity. The site will be framed by 3 roads. So there'll be sidewalks on all sides on all those roads. There will be for the pedestrians, there will be a main entrance on Yonge that takes them through into a lobby that connects to the drop-off. So the cars will come around and they'll go underneath a sort of an overhang, and they'll have a turnaround. I see, Uber and taxi drivers can drop off without being on the road or clogging the road up. And then they can continue into the underground. The townhouses, so if we look at this, you can see in terms of color coding, the lobby is that pale green color. You can enter from Yonge or you can enter from the back. So that'll be a really nice, convenient thing. The loading is all internal. There are 2 loading spaces, so you won't get garbage trucks in the roads there. In terms of pedestrian access, like I said, we can walk all around the whole site. There will be sidewalks connecting. There's a garden connection all the way through to Addison. And the townhouses along Addison will all have front doors on Addison, and there'll be quite a nice residential feel on that. And then the rear townhouses will be accessed by a garden walkway. So I just wanted to stress here, okay, this is moving up to the podium levels. So the podium fills itself out. It's a big U shape, but there's still 25 meters between the buildings. We have approximately 10 and a bit setback to the property lines and a good healthy setback to the townhouses. Next slide. So this would be the amenity levels, which is on top of the 5-story podium. And that salmon area is the internal indoor amenities. They would go out to the common deck that connects the 2, and we see outside activities like fire pits, lounging, and whatever. And they were now this is the tower floor plates. Now, this is what I find most interesting about the project. The tower floor plates are actually quite different. There's a square one and there's a rectangular one. They're still 25 meters apart. And what this kind of gives is, you'll see when we get to the rendering, or you've kind of seen it, the tower looks, I was trying to come up with a sort of a composition that combined verticals and horizontals. There's always a strong vertical banding at the corners. The balconies are horizontal. And the podium along Yonge, you can see the podium materials on the left side. And that's along Yonge. It's a very simple precast white horizontal bands. I find it's a very strong podium. Will hold the street edge, and the notch in the podium is where the main entry will be. So that will be quite clear.
I see, Charles, we're running out of time a little bit here.
Okay,
but,
on the rear of the town. Okay, so this is a very important slide, the angular plane. We completely comply with the angular plane, even though we have an 18 and a 22 story. The 18 you can see and beyond the angular plane coming off Addison. And the massing shows the towers and how they build out into the podium, but they've got a different sort of a unique shape. Let's go to the rendering. So here I was trying to create a very simple modernist building, which I think will be a really good infill project there on Yonge. A solid podium, a good 5-story podium, hold the street edge. And then the towers look different no matter from all different angles. So that was our intent. And we're quite excited about the project.
And Acting Mayor DePaula, I know we're over time. We're here to respond to members of the public. We are aware that some have issued correspondence, and we're very keen to work through matters that have been raised, questions of council, and we're going to be working closely with staff. So there's additional content to share, obviously, as members feel the need, but I'm in your hands, Acting Mayor, and thank you for the additional few moments. And we're here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Now, the second delegation that was registered is Jason Delia. I assume also representing 9750 Young Street. So you've got 5 minutes to address council. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody, and Acting Mayor DiPaolo and council. Just generally speaking, we'd like to just reiterate on what Charles and Ryan had said, that we're very excited about this project, and thank you to the staff, both the planning department and the engineering department, for working together with us over the last year, and all of our consultants to work through a number of issues that we've been faced, and challenges and so forth. And we look forward to receiving feedback and comments on how to bring this through to fruition. More than that, I'll just allow any questions that might be present from council, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Delia. Now I'll turn it back to members of council. I'll note this, give the floor to Councillor West, looking for a motion to receive comments and 3 items of correspondence in this case. Go ahead, Councillor West.
Mr. Acting Mayor, so I will be happy to move that motion. Thank you for the presentation. I'm not quite as enthusiastic about this one as I was the last one. I do think it's important for us to be keeping a fairly uniform height along the Yonge Street area. And we do have some buildings in that area that are a lot less than 22 stories. I mean, I realize you can go up to 15. I realize that it may be possible to go a little bit above that, but on top of that, according to the staff report, you're also over a fair amount on your FSI. So I would like that to be looked at. And I think that, in looking at some of the correspondence, I think some of the points that are made in the correspondence from the public are related to that. I will say, I mean, I do like the design of the building. I think it is nice to have that internal turnaround, and I think that the addition of the Addison Street extension to Yonge Street will definitely help this project, because it'll give you an ability to get in and out of that project a lot better than it would be if it was, without a public street adjacent to it. So I think there's definitely potential there. I think that there's some work that needs to be done, but I appreciate the opportunity to see this and to make some comments. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chair. And as I said, I'd be happy to move the motion to refer all the comments made here tonight and the correspondence from the public and comments from them back to staff.
Okay, thank you, Councillor West. Is there a seconder for the motion to receive the comments? Members of council can, okay, Councillor Chen, thank you very much. Any other requests to speak? Any other members of council have questions of the applicant? I see none. So the jury's out as far as I'm concerned with this project. It definitely brings some interesting elements, some positive architecture that I think will enhance the look of Yonge Street. But I too am a little concerned the massing of the structure on the property and how that's going to work out. I look forward to the comments coming back from our staff, and this progressing along through the process in coordination with the local ward councillor. So all in favor of the motion on the floor? That appears to carry unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, council. That concludes our business for this evening. Thanks to all those who participated and to members of the public. I just need a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Councillor West. Someone brave enough to second the motion to adjourn this meeting? Members of council. We're looking for a seconder on a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Councillor Munch. Okay. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Any opposed? Again, carries unanimously.